Good evening, everyone, and welcome to Wordsmith Theater's Playtime number 3, conversation about why plays work. My name is Ian Mawsey. I am the de facto technical director here at Wordsmith Theater Company. Tonight we are going to be discussing The Moors. Joining us are Jennifer Decker, artistic director at Mildred's Umbrella Theater Company and director of this play a couple of years ago, and Lisa Villegas, who was one of Jennifer's actors in that show. Ladies, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
We invite comments and questions from the audience. Put them in the comments here on Facebook. I will be keeping an eye on that. And towards the end, should there be any, I will pass them along to our panelists here. But right now, I will step out of the way and let them do what we're here for.
Okay, cool. So I'll just give a little summary because a lot of people might not know this play. This is the summary in the play, Samuel French sort of summary. The Moors, 2 sisters and a dog, live out their lives on the bleak English moors, dreaming of love and power. The arrival of a hapless governess and a moorhen set all 3 on a strange and dangerous path. The Moors is a dark comedy about love, desperation, and visibility. And basically the play is a Black comedy that it mixes together the lives of the actual Bronte sisters with the stories of the characters they wrote, like Jane Eyre, Wuthering Heights. Their lives were kind of intertwined with their characters anyway, like a romantic version of their lives and maybe what they wanted to happen. But this play sort of makes fun of that, and also there's a lot of anachronisms and things that still relate to modern times, and so that's basically why I chose the play in the first place. So did you have anything to add to that, Lisa?
No, that's pretty thorough. I mean, there's so many quirky bits, and there's so much more to delve into, but I think that's a really good overview for people that weren't able to see the play.
Yeah, so basically it's these 2 spinster sisters. Their ages are not mentioned in the description, so you have flexibility in casting, like you cast the whole thing younger or the whole thing older. I chose 40s to, like, my sisters were in their 40s, and then one is older than the other, and she sort of like tells everybody what to do, and she's running the household. They have this brother named Branwell who no one sees, and it turns out they've been keeping him in the attic. So he's been running around, spending all their money, just wrecking their lives basically, because he has all the power. They're women and they don't. This was a true thing that really happened to the Bronte sisters. They had 4 girls, I think. I think there were only 4 that I know about, 3 that actually were famous. And then this brother who was the one that inherited everything and had all the power, and his name was Branwell. And so that's why Jen Silverman put him in. So you never see him. He's in the attic. And so they've lured this governess, which there's a governess in all of the plays just about, like, because the girls themselves were governesses. It's pretty much the only job they could do when their brother wasted all their money. And so they lure her and with this like fictional child, and they pretend to be Branwell to get her there. And she has these romantic notions about Branwell. And really she's been corresponding with Agatha, the older sister. And that was Lisa's character. Mm-hmm. So yeah, and she's just like really the only sane person in the whole play most of the time.
Most of the time. Yeah. She is the outsider very much, and she sort of enters this world and is trying to understand its rules, because there are rules to be understood. For instance, she comes into the living room and then she's told that it's her bedroom, but also the sitting room. So all the rooms change their function according to what everybody else agrees or dictates, but it is the same physical space. So it'd be the equivalent of me sitting in my living room and telling you that this is now, our sunroom or our dining room or whatever.
Right. That was hilarious to me when I saw that in the set description. Basically, it's a unit set, just one room. That's great for any kind of production where you don't have a lot of money. So it's this room, but every time they leave and they're going to another room, they come back into this room and they call it something else. So she has to navigate, like, she has to learn that. No one explains.
Yeah. So they will leave that space and they'll come back into it and they'll say, there's a moment where the maid says, this is your bedroom. And Emily says, but I thought this was the living room. She says, no, it's your bedroom. And so she's, Emily slowly starts to catch on. There's a very adorable dog who is played by a human, played by John Harvey in our production. And he's supposed to be this huge mastiff. And Emily goes to pet him at first and she's told he's a very vicious dog, but he exhibits no signs of aggression. He seems like really friendly. And then, because this play plays so much on the imagination and so many other things, whimsy, we do get moments of the dog talking, and the dog is probably the deepest person in the play.
He's a philosopher.
Yeah, he's a philosopher. He's contemplating God, temporality of existence.
Yeah.
He
doesn't talk to the people. They can't hear him, or they won't. He mentions that. Like, one thing that was one of the cutest things that he said in one of his lines that I liked was, people think that dogs don't have facial expressions, but we do. They're just not looking for them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so he meets this moorhen. So she's a hen and she's been injured. She doesn't like flying and she breaks her leg. And all he wants is to have someone to be in love with, or have someone to love him. And all she wants is for him to help her get better so she can fly away. So it's this codependent relationship that is very similar to some relationships between humans. And that is, so that's the other character, is the moorhen. And then we've got the maid. The maid is also, she's the last character, and she's actually two people, or one person that everyone is calling two people. So when she's in the scullery, she's, is it Marjorie or Mallory? She's Mallory or Marjorie is in the scullery.
Yeah.
And the other one is in the parlor. But it's just a matter of the same actress and basically the same character putting on a different hat and calling herself the other name. And when she's in the scullery, she has typhus. And when she's in the parlor, she's pregnant. So that's another thing that Emily has to figure out, like, no one's explaining. It's just like, we pretend this, everybody pretends it, you need to just go along with it. And so
like in this world, it's not supposed to be two different people played by one actor. It's the same person played by the maid.
Yeah.
It's so crazy.
And everyone's just, this is the game. This is the reality that we pretend is there. So
it's a wackadoodle play. And so the governess arrives, under the guise of employment. She's been sending letters back and forth, she believes, with Branwell, and it's gotten very flirtatious, their letters have. She's come to take care of this child that she still has yet to meet, a few scenes in, and has yet to see Branwell, who's mysteriously absent. And then she starts to figure out what's going on. And that's where, there's a lot of darkness in the show. They've, like Jennifer was mentioning, they've kept Branwell in this attic, which is of course a play on like Jane Eyre. So a lot of her journey is just first trying to unravel this world and then deciding how to use it to her advantage once things don't pan out the way that she thinks they are going to.
Yeah, and to figure out why she's there and what they want of her, so she can, negotiate her own contract with them. Mm-hmm. She even says that at one point, right? Mm-hmm. And so, like, I could just run away, but where am I going to go? I don't have anything better than this. And so, so basically the idea, the reason why they've lured her there is because they need someone to get pregnant by their brother so that there's an heir because, and I guess it can't be the maid. They never really say, but they kind of imply that it can't be her because she's not upper class enough or she's not like well bred enough or whatever.
Yeah.
But they need somebody to have his baby, and then they can just let him die in the attic because they're barely keeping him alive up there. He's possibly monstrous or a mutant.
Yeah, they've got like a brick wall and they feed him through like this little brick, and they give him just not enough food to sustain like a human, believably.
Just barely.
Yeah. So it's all very strange. And then we find out too that it's been Agatha, the older sister, who's been writing these emails. What world am I in?
Hey, it could be. There's some anachronisms in it.
We did not do that in this production. These letters to Emily, and they've been sending these love letters that have gotten increasingly passionate. And so it's very surprising when she learns that it's been Agatha all along. You know, it's been a woman who's been having these shared fantasies with her.
Yeah, and she even admits part of the fantasy is not is like imagining what her life could be like if she hooks up with this person. You know, part of it is romantic, like what's he like or whatever, but then part of it is this is like the master of this big house and he seems to be in love with me. Like this could be great for me, right? So yeah, love is a big theme in the play. Different kinds of love, really dysfunctional love mostly. But real life love. And that's one of the relationships is, she finds out that Agatha is the one that wrote the letters. Well, maybe Agatha can be the one that helps her out if she's in love with her. So, so she even says, there's this one part where she says, I'll love you. I'll love you mostly, for what you can do for me. I don't remember the exact line. But she just admits it. She's just like, well, let's come up with a contract then. Part of why I'm going to love you is for, what you can give me back, basically. So yeah, I mean, that's one kind of love, right? And at least she's admitting it, where you're in it to get what you can out of it from the other person. And then there's the, and it was maybe romantic love in her head, but she can't have that, what she thought she was going to have. So she can figure out how to negotiate the situation to make it work for her. And then the other relationship, lover relationship, is the moorhen and the mastiff, which is doomed from the beginning. And we see it because he's this philosopher, but he's also like depressed. And he also spends their entire relationship worrying about her leaving him, and asking her to change who she is so she won't need to leave him. And that's a real type of love that we see. And then there's the moorhen is like, well, I have to do that because I'm gonna have to leave because I'm a bird, and why can't we just enjoy the moment? So they're like total opposites. And he's really my favorite character. They have these little separate scenes that are outside of the rest of the play, and I think a lot of people had criticisms of that because it wasn't like part of the plot really, but to me the point was that the love was dysfunctional, and he's not getting any love from the humans, so he finds it elsewhere. The very first thing that you see of him, he's in the parlor with the people in the first scene meeting Emily. You meet all the women. And all the humans are women. He says, after they leave, he's looking out and he says, a bird drops from the sky like a stone in the stomach, like all your happiness fleeting, then gone. The gorse extends, the sky extends, many things extend. Happiness, I suppose, does not extend. I was once upon a time greatly satisfied. I believe, I do not remember clearly. I put my face against my mother's side. There was milk. I imagine this caused me satisfaction. I would not presume to call it happiness. There's nothing lasting in this world. Birds drop and drop. There are always more. The skies keep spitting out birds, and the birds keep dropping. In that sense, you might say birds are lasting in this world, to which I would reply, it is never the same bird. And that's like basically him, like the whole time. And he meets the Moorhen and he comes out of the depression, but then he's got anxiety because all he's thinking about is when she's going to leave him and trying to beg her not to.
And she's then the whole time that she's going to.
Yeah, I mean, she knows, she keeps telling him. And we talked about this before about how it was like in relationships, but like if women in bars that some guy is talking to and you're saying, no, this is not going to be anything. No, it's not going to be
not
anything.
Interested. Yeah.
And then we all, most women will know exactly what we're talking about there. And then the guy isn't listening and gets angry when it turns out that you're telling the truth. And that's basically what happens in the play.
Mm-hmm. Is surprised, is shocked.
Yeah.
And things don't turn out the way he wants. Yeah.
Right. And then when it doesn't, when she wants to fly away, when she heals up, he kills her. He eats her, basically. He eats her.
Yeah.
There's an exchange that they have that kind of sums it up. He says, I'm sorry, I'm going on and on. I'm just not used to anybody listening. And she says, how do you know I'm listening? And he says, you might not be, but you're sitting still and looking at me, and that's good enough. And to me, that was like, okay, I recognize that moment.
Yeah. Been there.
Yeah, right? Yeah. So yeah, those are the two main relationships, but there's also the relationship between the sisters. There's the mistress and the maid and that dynamic. There's not really love there, but there's a lot of jealousy.
Yeah.
A lot of jealousy.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's one of the really striking things, and something that I'm thinking about these days is just like everybody's relationship to power in this world, especially the humans, and how even within, we're seeing a bunch of women, but even within this bunch of women in this imaginary world, there's a hierarchy. And we do know that there is a man in the house and he holds all the power, but they overtook him. And so Agatha gets some of that power, and that's what she wants. She wants to be in charge. And then Holdy just wants to be seen. She wants to be remembered. She wants to be known. And then the maid is the lowest on the totem pole in terms of the women. And when the mistress arrives, she threatens that. She threatens the hierarchy. She disrupts it. There's someone else that she is now beneath.
Yeah.
And like,
she's got to help get, like, the maid has to talk. Basically, Holdy is the younger sister for people who don't know the play. And the maid decides that she needs to get rid of Agatha, the person in power. Why? We don't really get a clear picture, except that she does seem to want to be in the higher position. She's like, she says at one point, why is it not me? I'm as smart as they are. I'm as good as they are. Why am I not the one that's the mistress of this house? Why am I the maid? And so she talks the younger sister, who's a little ditzy, wants to be an author, wants to be famous, but she doesn't have anything to write about because she's never been anywhere, done anything, or met anybody. So like her diary is really bad and boring, and there's nothing in it. And
she uses that to her advantage.
Right. So she talks Holdy into killing her sister, not because she hates her sister, but just because if you do this, people will see you. You will have done something. You will be somebody. People will be interested in what you're saying instead of dismissing you.
You'll have a story. Yeah. They'll want to know what your thoughts are, and they'll come visit you in jail to learn about the lady killer,
And you can write a book. Then you can write a book. People will read it. Yeah. And then but then the maid gets very frustrated with Holdy because instead of planning the murder, all she does is write her murder ballad that people are going to sing after about her. And that is one of the anachronisms in the play, because after she kills her sister with an axe, she like sings this rock power ballad, starts off very like ballady, but then it's like a heavy metal, and then it's rap, and like the music was provided. We had it recorded by our musicians, but But yeah, that it was meant to be that way. Even though it's so watching this, it was the funniest thing in the play, watching this Victorian woman do this power ballad, and it's like a moment that everybody was just falling out after, you know.
It was hilarious.
Yeah.
Yeah, Lindsay Sweeney just killed it.
Yeah. So like that was another thing. When I read it, I was like, what?
Yeah.
We're totally doing this play.
Yeah. One of the big lines in the song was, "I did a thing, a very bad thing." Yeah.
And I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry because the maid tells her that if she's sorry, it won't be as interesting.
Yeah.
She has to be cold-hearted about it. So yeah, and then in the end, the both of the mistresses are gone, and the governess and the maid have taken their place.
Mm-hmm.
They're sitting in their chairs. They're acting like them.
Mm-hmm.
Now
they stop being, you know, enemies, so to speak. I mean, I don't think it ever gets quite that nasty, but they stop working against each other and seeing how they can, you know, join forces and use the situation to their advantage. And yeah, they take over the house.
I kind of like at the time, and I think I talked about this at the time, wondered if that was sort of also what they had done in Downton Abbey, where they were trying to show the transition, you know, the end of the upper class, and how the class lines were starting to get blurred. And I wondered if I never saw anybody else say this, so I wasn't sure, but I wondered if possibly that was the idea. There was like, now the working class is in charge, or, you know, now it's sort of like a revolution happened. So I don't know if that's what she meant by it, but that's kind of one of the things that I got out of it.
Yeah, when the power dynamics are so heavily leaning towards one side, you know, there has to be some sort of balance. And, you know, we can see that historically and possibly in this play, you know, I think as these women sort of overtake the house.
Yeah, it just kind of happens. And then in the casting, you know, we had, she says, there's only one man, 5 women. The playwright encourages diversity, so we went with that. And that's one of the anachronisms too. There were a couple of little words here and there. Mostly those were the 2 main ones, were the casting. Oh, and the lack of British accents. She also says, don't put on fake British accents. Do the accent of the region that is being performed. So that's what we did.
Yeah, and I thought that worked really well.
Yeah, I mean, we actually got praised for it, and it wasn't our idea. The reviewer was like, "I love it when they don't like force British accents on us," and I was like,
"Thanks, Jen Silverman."
I'll go ahead and like take credit for that, but it wasn't me. It was Jen Silverman. She had a good reason for wanting that to be. So yeah, I don't know if how long they want us to talk about the play, Ian.
Well, if y'all are running out of things to say, this could be a good time to jump to questions, because we do have a few of those.
Yeah, awesome. Yay.
Hope we know the answers.
Me too.
First one from Lindsay Sweeney. We talked about it in rehearsal, about why there might have been 2 maids, even though it was only 1. I found it so interesting. Can y'all talk about that?
I don't remember it, probably at the time, because my directing advice is always, if you don't know, you better be really good at making something up on the spur of the moment, or ask the actor what they think about it. Either one of those 2 things. I don't know. Do you
I mean, I think it kind of goes back to pretending that there's all these rooms that are open, you know, because you have to close down rooms certain parts of the year when you have these Victorian mansions. But I think it goes back to the play pretend of, we have the money and the resources to have a huge staff on hand, except they don't in reality, you know. And so to prop themselves up, they're like, no, we have 2 maids. We have 2.
Yeah, that you know, she even says at one point, one of the one that doesn't want to do the work in the kitchen, and she says, I think that her typhus is acting up, And Agatha, the mistress, says, well, find out if she has any sisters. That way that she dies, like you can like invent this new sister to take her place.
Yeah, because
So,
the maid herself uses that to avoid work and to, get advantage of
That
it.
kind of like, that actually would back up that whole thing about the dying upper class, because it was kind of that time period where that was happening.
Yeah. And the rooms being one space,
Yeah, so they've got all these, they got this one room they're pretending is a bunch of rooms, and then they've got this one maid they're pretending is two maids. So yeah, totally. I think you're right.
Yeah.
All right. Question from Denise O'Neill. Do you feel the playwright does a good job creating strong and consistent character development?
Yeah, they're not empty shells of people. They each have their own very distinct personality and arc, for sure.
Yeah.
Each of them, yeah.
I would agree with that. I mean, even though we have like non-human characters, we've got a chicken, we've got a mastiff, but even they have an arc, emotionally. I think like they have interiority that is manifested in different ways.
Yeah, and we didn't. Yeah, they do. I mean, they almost they traveled through the play like humans. They're basically, we didn't make them act like animals. They're not. The chicken's not walking around saying "bok bok bok," and the dog's not barking. There'd be like some little moment every now and then where that reminds you that they're a dog or a bird.
And physicality, yeah.
But yeah, even they have their own very distinct personalities and character arcs. So yeah, I think she did. I always feel that way about her work, but
especially for a short.
A lot of what was that?
Especially for such a short play. I mean, it's only like 90 pages or so. 87. Yeah. I think. I mean, that's hard to do, and with how is it many? Like 6 characters. 6 characters in 87 pages. Like that's a lot to cover, and I think she's very efficient.
Yeah. So the answer is yes. That's my opinion, but of course I chose the play to direct to talk about, so I would say that.
Funny you should mention that. William Duell, one of our good friends, wordsmith vice president, notes that he found the bit about the dog and the moorhen very sad. He saw the production, loved it, apologizes he hasn't read the Moors, but he would like to know, Jennifer, what was the fundamental gut reason you decided to take it on and direct it?
That's a good question, because I don't always know. That's why a lot of times I don't like to talk about plays and why I chose them, because sometimes I don't know. I'm one of those people that has a gut reaction, just like it's an instinct or something, that I really just connect with a work. And a lot of plays I read, I don't. Like I have to have other people read them out loud and hear what other people think. And then there's a lot of plays that we end up doing that I don't feel that way about. But this one, I was. And I think it was just the language was, the first scene is just 90 miles an hour of these like overlapping conversations. And it was so obvious in that first scene that every single person wants something and nobody else is listening to them, basically. And I was really attracted to that dynamic. And then the next scene was the last part of the scene was the Mastiff's monologue. And that was what hooked me, the one that I read. I was like, okay, I'm going to read the rest of this. And then just everything, like the quirky moments. I guess I could answer that question with the language and the way no one's listening to each other, and there's all these conversations always happening parallel to each other, and then the relationship between the moorhen and the mastiff, and the power ballad. I can say that those things I was like, okay, yeah, those are reasons for me to do it. I thought the play was good, and in other ways, but instinctually I wanted to do the play based on those moments, I think.
All right, well, normally we go, we're targeting half an hour to 45 minutes. We're at about half an hour now, so we can stick around for a few more minutes, see if anyone else has any more observations. Denise and Lindsay are in agreement with your comments, with your answers to their questions. So is William.
Cool.
That was nice of them to watch us. I know all three of those people. So, they're all very smart and nice.
Actually, I've got a question that I'm going to steal from William last time we did this. If you had to pick one element that that makes the play work more than any other, what would it have been?
An element as far as just anything in the play?
Yeah, anything in the play, or or like when we asked Denise this last time, her answer came down to, I really felt the story of Seven Guitars was compelling. So
I think I've always been a sucker for retellings, and I mentioned that when we talked before we were on live. Yeah, just the mixing together, the juxtaposition of the reality of the lives of the Bronte sisters with their characters. To me, that's what makes it work. Because anybody, like a lot of people that came to see the play had read the work of the Bronte sisters, and that's why they came. They were super excited to see how that story came together. So that's the element for me that makes the play work. There were just a lot of people, and a lot of people were talking about it afterwards based on that sort of mixed together, because a lot of people have some contact with Bronte sisters' work in their lives, just in school or whatever, or in high school or college, maybe, or they've seen a movie or whatever. But there are a lot of people that are super into it, and they, when they read that was what it was about, they really wanted to see, like, how is that mixed together? How are the Bronte sisters' lives mixed with the characters that they wrote? And I think that for me, that's what makes it work.
Yeah, for me, I think it's a similar thing as to what you're describing. Insofar as, for me, there's like a lot of doors through which you could enter the play. I think there's a lot of aspects that could be the thing that pulls you into it. So maybe you're more into the Mastiff and the Hen story, that sort of unrequited and toxic love, or it's the power dynamics, or it's the crazy Branwell being kept in a closet, or it's the Bronte sisters and the sort of mishmash of different structural elements found in the Bronte sisters' work in this really playful way. I just think there's a lot of places where you can enter, or maybe it's the kookiness. So I just think it's very accessible, and it's ambitious, and it does a lot in not a lot of time,
All right. Lindsay Sweeney would like to know, Lisa, have you continued to play the ukulele?
She learned how to play the ukulele specifically for the play.
No. No, I was trying to keep up with it, and then I got super busy with a million other things, and then I had this like horrible audition in which I don't know why I decided I was going to play the ukulele, and I was so traumatized from my terrible performance that I haven't touched it. So maybe someday, maybe now, it'll come back to me.
And you know what? That seems like a good question to end on. Thank you, Jennifer and Lisa, for
thank you
joining us. Thank you, everyone on Facebook who is watching, especially Lindsay, Denise, and William for submitting all these wonderful questions.
I've got a question for Jennifer. What's next for Mildred's?
Oh, we have our FemFest Voices of Asia readings going online starting Wednesday or Thursday. There's one a week. They were supposed to be live with the Asia Society. There's one per week for the next 3 weeks. But then everything's on pause like everyone else. We just didn't want to cancel that.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
There you go. All right. Thank you so much.
Yeah. Thank y'all. Join us again in 2 weeks. We're going to have Crystal Ray on Monday the 15th to talk about In the Blood by Susan Laurie Parks.
Cool.
Thank y'all and good night.
Thank you.
Good night.